Hello and welcome to another episode of Owen's Oddyssey. I hope you're doing good. I'm not doing too bad at all here now. It's about 20 degrees outside and it's getting pretty balmy out there, so that's why I've got my legs opened up like this. Oh, I've got me pajamas halfway up, I suppose. I've got the knees on display and the legs are getting a bit of fresh air down there. It's getting fairly clammy out there. And look, that's what we want. That's the only thing we've been asking for in the last few years, God. That you've given us a bit of good weather. Just a bit of good weather just to take the pinch out of the air. And it's lovely out there. Really, really happy with that now. So thank you very much for that, God. How are you getting on anyway? How's Drakes? What you been up to? Have you been travelling around the place much, or have you been hanging out in the house a bit? Have you been on the phone? Scrolling? Doom scrolling? Spending 5.5 hours? Oh, Jesus. On the phone every day. I looked at me phone, screen time. And sometimes when you're using the phone, you will maybe turn it off, but you'll be listening to something, like a podcast or something. So I don't know if it counts that time too, because that's not really screen time. But sometimes you look at the phone, you're like, how much fucking time am I spending on that phone? It's everywhere. And it's the habit. You go out, you're hanging out with your friends, you take out the phone, you put it on the table, and it's just there saying, touch me. Please play with me. Please look at me for information. It ruins everything. But it's so handy. It's so handy for all the information that you could ever want, or entertainment that you could ever crave. It's got all that there. So that's just my observation of the phone. It's a very in-depth observation of the phone. Anyways, this week we're going to talk about biscuits, and which is your favourite biscuit, or which is the favourite biscuit of people across the world. We're also going to be looking at minimalism and getting rid of shit that you don't need in your house. And finally, we're going to wrap this whole thing up with chatting about how to make friends in your 30s, which is a tricky time to make friends. People are settling into their lives. In your 20s, all you got to do is go down to the shop, you get chatting to somebody, you end up moving into a house with them. In your 30s, it's a bit more tricky. So we're going to be chatting about how to make friends in your 30s. And we're going to be covering some of the world headlines at the moment. In fact, we're going to start off with that. We're going to get straight into the cock and balls of this week's podcast. Hailey Bieber is pregnant. Pop star Justin and his model wife announced they're expecting their first child as she shows off a bump in her wedding dress. Wow. Nobody gives a shite about that. Billie Piper shows off her amazing figure in a nude corset dress. Nobody gives a shite about that either. Hollywood. Who are the shortest actors in Hollywood? Tom Cruise does not make the list at 5'8", as one is 4'10", and two have been in Jumanji. What does that even mean? The shortest actors, are they talking about dwarfs here, or are they talking about like what? I don't get this. Alan Ladd, 5'6", used to stand on boxes when shooting scenes with his female co-stars. Okay. Danny DeVito, he's known for being on the shorter side, which has worked well for his career. Danny DeVito, legend. Absolute legend. He's done so well for himself when you think about it. He's only 4'10". Jesus Christ. But he packs a presence though. That's the thing. It's all about the presence really. And not Johnny DeVito, but Danny DeVito, he has that in spades. Michael J. Fox is 5'4". Hold on a second now. Oh no, 4'10". So 5'4". So he's 6 inches taller than Danny DeVito. I thought he was more than that. Joe Pesci, 5'4". Another fella packs a punch. Joe Pesci. If you've seen him, you'd think. If you've seen him from the back, you'd think, Jesus, there's a small fella. But if you've seen him from the front, you think, Jesus, there's a big man. Because he packs that aura about him that you wouldn't want to cross him. You wouldn't want to cross him. In any movie you've seen him in, you're like, wow, there's a guy that walks into a room and he garners respect. He's 81 years of age. Jesus Christ. He's 81 years of age, man. He's doing well for himself. Seth Green, 5'4". Okay. Who else we got here? Daniel Radcliffe, 5'5". Kevin Hart, 5'5". Kevin Connolly, 5'5". Jason Alexander, 5'5". And that is it. So, okay, well, it's a strange one really, because your man from Game of Thrones, what was his name again? Game of Thrones fella. Game of Thrones, small man, is it? Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage is an American actor who is perhaps best known for his role as Tyrone Lannister. Height, we'll say. Oops. 4'5". So what? Can he not be considered as a small actor? Is that not counting? Shortest actors in Hollywood. That was what the title said. Anyways, power to the lot of them for celebrating smaller men. I'm 5'8", if that's any good to you. Sometimes I feel like 5'9". Sometimes I feel like 5'2". It depends a lot as well on what you're wearing. It depends on the clothes you have on you, and it depends. I find if you have a shower, it's always good. If you can get in a shower before you go out and get a nice warm shower into yourself, and then stick on a top that, it could be like a t-shirt that you haven't worn before, that shows off the biceps, and even a pair of hiking boots or something like that to give you a couple of inches, and just walk into town then, or get a lift in, whatever way you get into town. And could be the difference between getting the hop or not getting the hop. That's if that's your reason for going into town. You could be someone like Danny DeVito, who's, I think he's married, is he? Danny DeVito wife, let me see now. Rhea Perlman. Danny DeVito was married to a woman called Rhea Perlman, married in 1982. Jesus Christ, man, he's doing well to keep that going. Wow. Okay, see, this is the kicker here now. This is the kicker. This practice of living separate lives while simultaneously avoiding divorce is something iconic actors Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman know quite well. They have 3 children together, but it appears they don't even live in the same house together. So what? They meet up once a month? I don't know. Celebrities in unconventional marriages have become increasingly open about their personal arrangements in recent years. Perhaps more notably, Jade Pinkett Smith's reveal that she and Will Smith have been separated for several years. There's one I never could quite figure out how that worked. Will Smith and Jade Pinkett. Behind all the talk, I know people say that she was riding other fellas, but Will Smith must have been off riding other women. Had to be. Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like, loads of money. Amazing actor, singer, rapper, cool dude. You know, you say what you like, but there's plenty of people out there that would love to suck Will Smith's Mickey. And Jade Pinkett Smith, she did reveal that they're living separate lives. So she was kind of insinuating that she might have been off with other fellas. And there was a lot of talk about the connections that she had with Tupac. And it's probably hard for Will Smith to live up to Tupac. But Will Smith was at one point, I remember this, I think the noughties maybe, Will Smith got voted the world's best rapper. Now, I don't think that that's true. I don't think that you think that that's true. I don't even think that Will Smith thinks that that's true. But Tupac Shakur, a lot of people would say that he was the best rapper. Now, you might say, no, it's Nas, or no, it's Eminem, or no, it's Kendrick Lamar. It's definitely not Drake anyway. We won't even get into their beef. Because I couldn't be arsed, to be honest. But anyways, we'll go back to this separate live and carry on that celebrities seem to be involved in. This practice of living separate lives while simultaneously avoiding divorce is something iconic actors Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman know quite well. They got married in 1982, 3 children. They were in wedding bliss for 4 decades before announcing their separation. Doesn't make sense. If they were in wedding bliss for 4 decades, why would you rock the boat then? In 2012, this is when they made the change to live separate lives but remain married. If you were in wedding bliss for 40 years of wedding bliss, Hey, honey, I love you. Love you too. Do you want a coffee? Sure, I'd love a coffee. Do you want to drink it outside and watch the sun rise? Sure. I love you. I love you too. Everything's gravy. Do you want to cook together today? I would love that. Let's stick on a bit of music while we do it. Justin Timberlake? Yeah, put him on. And if it was wedding bliss, then they wouldn't have went their separate ways. That's all I'm saying. Unless, of course, they got very busy now. I know Danny DeVito is a very busy man. They've never gone through divorce proceedings. DeVito spoke about the relationship in a new interview. We're doing great, he said. We're sharing our new granddaughter, and we see each other all the time. We were together for our granddaughter's birthday party, and we had a family party. We're a tight family. You know what? Maybe that's the way to go. Maybe that's the new age dating regime that is the way to go. Now, it's a new phenomenon, really, when you think about it, especially in Ireland. We wouldn't be into that kind of carry-on at all. You might go as far as Sweden or somewhere like that, and they'd be all up for that kind of stuff. Those open marriages where everyone is shagging each other. Everyone is shagging each other, and it's normal. They're very open-minded like that in Sweden, and I'm sure lots of other places. But in Ireland, it's just me and you together. Nobody's fucking anybody else. Let's stay together through better or worse, through thick and thin, till death do us part. And that's what I have in my mind anyway. That's the way I see it. I would never be able to be in an open relationship. I just don't think it'll work for me. I get too jealous. I'd be thinking about who they're riding. I'd be like, fuck, damn, man. They had a Mickey. They seen a Mickey. It's not mine. And you'd be, I don't know. I mean, no, it wouldn't work for me at all. Some people are mad for it, but I wouldn't like it at all. So I won't be doing it anytime soon, Danny DeVito. And I'm not even married, but if I ever do get married, then I won't be. You never know. He's an older man now, Danny DeVito. What age is Danny DeVito? You see, Danny DeVito, age 79. Maybe he's dead right. Yeah, maybe he's right. There's a lot of biscuits out there that they're flashy, you could say, because they're all trying to stand out in a market that is oversaturated by biscuits and cookies. I know the Yanks have a different idea of what a biscuit is, but here a biscuit is something that you dip into your tea of an evening. And they come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. We used to have these ones called USA biscuits, where they'd come in a big tin, and you'd have two levels of biscuits. You'd have chocolate covered ones, you'd have long thin bourbons, you'd have a custard cream, you'd have a hobnob, you'd have maybe like a caramel biscuit, you'd have a coffee flavoured biscuit, and then you'd have one in a green wrapper and one in a red wrapper. Now, I had never had much time for the ones in the wrappers, because they thought that they were cool biscuits. They thought that they were better than all the other biscuits because they came with the wrapper. Why? Why not just be out and about like all the other biscuits, just chilling there in the box, ready to be eaten, instead of like, okay, let me take off the lid. Okay, let me take off the wrapper. What? Another wrapper? No, thanks. So I did eat them though. I would never leave them there. And some people wouldn't eat the coffee biscuits in my house. They didn't like the coffee biscuits, but I love them because there was a bit of a kick off them as well. And I found with the coffee biscuits, if you dip them in tea, then it would just create some sort of orgasmic sensation in your mouth. It would blow your mind, so it would. But anyways, all these biscuits that are on it, and let's put chocolate into this as well. I'm sick of it. All these duos you get in the shops, Bounty duos and Snickers duos and Twix duos. I don't know if there's a Twix duo, but there probably should be actually. 2 long sticks. And Kit Kat chunky duos. All this duos carry. No. That's just an excuse for you to be eating more chocolate. Same with the crisps, just big packets. And I did drop the ball during the week. I fucking had a massive packet of crisps all to myself. I drove down the road there just to get out of the house. And I ended up getting a big packet of sour and cream crisps and just ate them. the whole packet. I felt so bad after it. But anyway, what I was saying there was my favourite biscuit, and you might disagree with me. It's a competition. It's a throw up really between the ginger nut and the custard cream. Now, if you're not a ginger nut fan, then bear with me, because there's a lot to be said about the ginger nut. Yeah, it's not a great biscuit on its own. On its own, it's a shockingly bad biscuit. It's disgusting. You wouldn't feed it to the birds outside. But if you dip that biscuit in tea 3 or 4 times and it soaks in the flavour of the tea, you're talking orgasmic levels of taste. Better than anything you could ever eat. Better than any Italian food you could ever eat. Any Spanish food you could ever wrap your lips around. A cup of tea with a ginger nut dipped 4 or 5 times is exquisite. And there's only one thing that tops that. It's a custard cream that's dipped 4 or 5 times as well in a cup of tea. I wouldn't consider myself a man of culture, but I will say that the custard cream is probably the best biscuit ever. And if you're looking for its slightly less tasty cousin, go for a chocolate bourbon. Dip that in a cup of tea, come back to me. So what's your favourite biscuit out there? Let me know in the comments. Is there any special biscuits from your country that you recommend? Let me see now. What are the Yanks beating biscuit-wise? Let me see. This is not working, is it? The old fucking computer's not working now at the moment. Yeah, my computer's fucked at the moment, so I'm going to have to leave that. The custard cream, though, is a cornerstone of Irish society, and I think that we need to celebrate the custard cream a bit more, because I think it's a lovely biscuit. Now we're going to move quickly on to minimalism, because there's an awful lot. I have an awful lot of shit everywhere that I just want to get rid of. Just shit like this. I don't know what to do with this. I bought this hand a few weeks ago, or a few months ago on Amazon. I've got 2 lighters, that kind of stuff. You know, batteries. 2 batteries here that I don't know if they're working or they're not working. Cables coming out my arse. I've got a calendar there that's a year old. This Steve Bruce toy, which I do like, so I'm going to keep it. Cups, bowls, like 7 or 8 cups, and no need for 7 or 8 bowls in a house, unless of course you're expecting the Kelly family to come over for tea. I just think that all of this junk and crap, call it what you like, trash if you're a Yank, it just needs to go. It needs to go. So I'm going to try and get into the minimalism myself. And I was looking up some techniques on how to clear out all the crap out of your life. And one of the techniques is what's it called? Let me see. I have it down here somewhere. It's the burn and fire technique. And that is that if there was a fire in your house, what 3 things would you grab? And I was thinking about that, and I thought I'd probably grab car keys, and I would probably grab the phone, because, you know, the phone is just, it's handy, I suppose. And then I would grab my 7-inch dildo that I keep underneath the pillow. So what would you grab? Let me know, what would you grab in a house fire if there was one in your house? But what if you got rid of everything? Wires, cups, clothes, and you just kept it very, very basic, and you went back to the old times of Adam and Eve, where people were just wearing maybe a small bit of clothes over their body and just eating fruit from the trees. Simple. Like an animal almost, like a dog or a wild cat or a bird. And you're just living out there in the wild. And you got rid of all of your shit. And, you know, like, it's like a nude beach in a way. At the beginning you'd feel awkward. And then after a while it'd feel normal. You'd see someone else's Mickey, you'd see someone else's tits, and you'd be like, that's weird. But then after a while, you're like, you know, this is the way it should be. This is the way it should be. We need to go back to having nothing at all. Just very, very basic stuff. And I know for the first probably 6 months, there'd be a period where we'd be all really, really pissed off, cranky. There'd be a detox period. But I think there'd be a lot to be said in 6 months' time for how the world is very chilled out, I'd imagine. People living off the land a lot more, growing their own vegetables, their own chickens, their own herbs, not having to be worrying about where the feck the cable is for the phone, which is, I've got one cable now for the phone and it's barely working. I have to prop the phone up in a certain way and the phone is always dying. And I'm like, well, what's going on here? So I seen something somewhere about minimalism, and I thought, I need to get into that. But every time I try to get rid of stuff, I always feel like, oh no, I better not get rid of that because I'm going to use that again. So another technique that I was reading about was you fill up a box of stuff that you don't use. And in 6 months' time, if you haven't needed to get near that box, then what you want to do is you want to throw the box in the bin or bring it into a second-hand shop. And that way someone else will get to use it. St. Vincent de Paul, one of the boys. And that's what I've been doing. I've got a box over there full of absolute crap. Not just crap, but like stuff that I don't like. Cables, nuts, bolts, books, piece of paper, cables, more cables, batteries, firelighters, all that kind of stuff that I just don't really use all the time. And I'm going to put that box now up in the attic. If I don't come back to it in 6 months, it's going into the skip, or it's going into St. Vincent de Paul, and they might take some bits out of it. And if they don't, it's going into the skip. Hey, do you want to make friends in your 30s? Are you finding it difficult? I'm going to give you some techniques on how you can do that. One of the simplest techniques that has been working for generations and decades and centuries is you go down to the pub, you have a few pints, and you just start chatting to the person beside you. Now, this new culture, we're more on our phones, we're more at home, we're more away from people, and so it's getting a bit trickier to make friends. Now, not only that, when you hit your 30s, people change. People become more family orientated, or they get into different hobbies, or they get into their career more. And so people start diverging down different tracks, and all these friends that you had from school, maybe national school or secondary school, you tend to, maybe sometimes you go in a different direction, sometimes you go in a similar direction, and it just tightens up with some friends, and other friends then you just go your different ways. So it's tricky to make friends in your 30s, and it gets harder the older you get. So I was reading online a few different techniques on how you can make friends in your 30s. One of them is join a club. Hey, do you like ping pong? Would you fancy joining a ping pong club in town? Not just ping pong, but anything that you might like to do, that's a club you should join. And then you can meet like-minded people. Maybe you like boxing, maybe you like ping pong, maybe you like swimming naked on a beach. There's people for this. So if you want to make friends in your 30s, join a club that does one of those things. And then you can do those activities together. So not only do you have a friend who's a similar interest, you also have somebody who you can hang out with. And I know that in school, national school, you're kind of put into a national school by your parents, and then it's the friendship group that's around you. You kind of have to just go with that, which, obviously you can meet people who you'll be friends with for the rest of your life. And some people I still know from my national school since I was a 3-year-old. Some people I've known longer than anybody in my life. Still very, very good friends of mine. But then you go into your secondary school when you're around 12 or 13, and that's a different kettle of fish altogether. That's a different kettle of fish because you're thrown in the deep end then. I went from a national school of 15 people to a secondary school of 500 people. And I come from the countryside, so I went into the town. And the townies and the countryside people, there was a bit of a clash between us there them times. It probably still is a bit. Like, it's almost like a townie and a city person, or a city person and like a Dublin person. Anybody outside of Dublin they might consider to be a culture. We'd consider any dub to be a city person. So there is this sort of friction between them. But not to say you can't make good friends from the city. I have great friends that I met in Dublin only in around the early noughties, who I'm still very, very good friends with, So it's all up in the air, really. But you went to secondary school, and when I went in, there was about 500 people, and I was like, fuck's sake, man, there's a lot of people here. I'm going to have to really try something here now to meet people. So you talk to people, you sit beside people in class, you get to know them, you find out who's a safe bet, who you can hang out with, and then you spend time hanging out with them, and then you build up these friendships. And then you hit around 19 or 20 and people go to college, or they leave the country, or they move back home, or they move away, or they pick a career choice that is not the same as yourself, or maybe it is the same as yourself. I remember when I went from my secondary school to Galway, I moved with some very close friends and we lived together, and some of them went to college. I didn't go to college. I just worked in shops at the time, like Vivo and Easton's bookstore and Boots and Smith's Toy Masters and all those ones, Lifestyle Sports, all these different shops in Galway, just to make a few quid. And some of my friends went and studied civil engineering, stuff like that. And some of them didn't finish, some of them did. And we kept the friendships going, and it was great, like friends for life there. And then you hit your 30s, and then you probably hit a new phase of your life where you're like, do I go down this path of my career? Because it seems to be it's all about careers when you hit your 30s. Now, it shouldn't be really, but it seems to be there's a heavy reliance on careers, because I suppose that's what helps you through life. That's what pays the bills. And so you have to probably take your career more seriously at that point. And that's why people tend to have a bit less time in their 30s. In your 20s, you're knocking around. Maybe you're going to college, but at the same time, you're just free, footloose, and enjoying your life. And you're chatting to people here, there, and everywhere. Whereas you get a bit more caught up in the idea of time and the preciousness of time when you hit your 30s. And I think that's what brings in a bit of the stress. So you become more careful about who you spend your time with. But as I said before, one thing you can do is start ping pong and meet some ping pong friends. That's one thing you can do. You can join a gym. Hey, we all know people can be intimidated by the gym, and what am I saying here? It can be, I wrote this down, I don't even know what I've written. Hey, we all know how intimidating it can be to get in there and start crunching weights, but it's time to be brave. Go for it. You deserve to be shredded. Find a partner who can spot you. That's a great way to make friends. Somebody that will look down on you when you lift up the weights, or they will stand above you when you're just pushing those weights up. You deserve to be shredded. Your first few crunches will suck balls, but soon you'll have a rock hard core system that will make people want to hang out with you. Friends who sweat together stay together. And it is a great bonding experience, the gym. If you can find somebody to go to the gym with, that's another great place to build up a friendship, because you get to sweat together. I remember myself and another friend, we used to go to Galway City Gym all the time together. We'd go maybe 3 times a week, and we'd work out, and then we'd go into the sauna and we'd sweat together, and then we'd have the crack on the walk home, chat about what we're planning to do the weekend. Normally it involved drink, which would undo all of the hard work we did in the gym, but it was like a cyclical kind of thing where the two of them kind of went hand in hand together, and you build up these friendships through the experiences. So join a club, join a gym, or what else? Join your local football team. Now, I'm a bit skeptical about this point, because I tried to rejoin my local football team here, and out of nobody's fault but my own, I wasn't good enough. Everybody was a lot quicker, faster, taller, pacier than they used to be, and I just didn't have the touch anymore. I went to one training session, I had shitty football boots anyways, and I thought, you know what? No, I can't dedicate myself to training like these lads are training, so I will not join the local football team. I only went to one training. Now, AstroTurf is a different story. If you want to get playing AstroTurf or indoor soccer, it's a great place to meet boys. Just don't be like my ex-football coach, who's now in prison for trying to fuck the linesman during a game of football. I don't even know why I wrote that down there. But anyway, finally, if you feel like your anxiety is preventing you from meeting friends, I'd highly advise the time-proven technique of booze and cigarettes to help bridge the gap. Of course, I'm talking tongue-in-cheek here, but it does seem to be a way to meet people in a pub, because your guard is down, you're in a dark corner of a pub. It doesn't even have to be a dark corner. It could be a lovely bright corner, but the darker light tends to lend to people to be a bit more footloose and fancy free. There, I've gone and said that again, footloose and fancy free. But what I'm saying is, there's a lot to be said for the pub and the quaintness of having a conversation and just being like, you know what, the world is out there, we're in here, talking a bit of shit. That's why I believe if there's anybody out there who's a businessman, open up a cafe pub and they will clean up in Ireland, because it'll be a place for people to hang out, have a few pints, not get too messy. Maybe have a bit of food in there as well. A few glasses of wine, a few beers, where people can have the crack, chat to each other, and not get too messy, and go home then before it gets too messy. So there's some tips for you on how to make friends in your 30s. Hope they work for you. Thanks very much for listening to this week's podcast of Owen's Oddyssey. This week's episode of Owen's Oddyssey. Looking forward to seeing you next week. Chat to you then. Bye bye.